All right. Thank you, Jessica. So welcome, everyone. Welcome playwrights, community members, community partnerships, and stakeholders alike. My name is Jacquetta Farrar, pronouns she, her, hers, and I am the artistic producer here at Playwrights Foundation. And on behalf of myself, staff, and board, we are so appreciative to have all of you in the virtual space with us today as we discuss PF's new purpose and strategic programming shift around the Bay Area Playwrights Festival. So today I am joined with PF's Executive Artistic Director, Jessica Bird Beza, and PF's Literary Manager, Heather Helinsky, who I will pass it to introduce themselves. So, Heather.
Hey, I'm so excited to see everybody here. It's so good to connect. Been reading your wonderful plays. My name is Heather Helinsky, she, her pronouns, literary manager. I've been here at Playwrights Foundation for about 3 years, although I've been a dramaturg since 2006 professionally. I've been out and about and seen many of you in many of these different contexts. So it's so lovely to be here with you, and passing it to Jessica.
Hi, welcome everybody. Thank you for being here and interested in Playwrights Foundation. And my name is Jessica Bird Beza. My pronouns are she, hers, and I'm the Executive Artistic Director at Playwrights Foundation and have been at Playwrights Foundation since October 2019. So a little over 3 years. And I'm gonna pass back over to Heather.
Great. Also, as we are welcoming you, we would like to do a land acknowledgement. We at Playwrights Foundation respectfully acknowledge that we are on the unceded territory of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, who are the past, present, and future caretakers of this land. We are guests here and recognize that we benefit from living and working on their ancestral homeland. It is a privilege to call this our home. We wish to pay respects by acknowledging the ancestors, relatives, and relatives of the Ramaytush Ohlone community by affirming their sovereign rights as a people. Also just to take an action, if you're interested in donating, there's a link below. Thank you.
And we'd love to invite everybody to introduce themselves in the chat, to see who is in the room with us today, and also to share your native lands, if you know what those are. Throughout our time together today, we are going to have multiple ways for folks to participate through the chat, and through some links that we're going to share in the chat, but we are going to ask, since we are recording this so that we can put it on YouTube so that others are able to access this, we aren't going to have much spoken conversation, but we are wanting to engage with you. So if you have questions, feel free, as we're moving along, feel free to put them in the chat as we're going. And if we don't answer your question in how we're moving through, we do have a section at the end where there's going to be a point where we will address questions that haven't been answered. But right now, introducing yourself in the chat, we want to see who is here with us, see who's in space. Let us know maybe if you're a playwright. This session is going to be directed more towards playwrights as we are moving through today as well. And just to give you a little overview as people are introducing themselves, because we have a little bit of a grounding next, and I realize if you're introducing yourself, you can't do a grounding. So a little overview kind of what we're going to move through today is kind of spend some time talking about Playwrights Foundation's new purpose, vision, and values that were created in a strategic planning process and approved and implemented in fall 2021, which also has led to how do we put those into action within our organization in various ways, which has been happening over the past couple of years. And then to our programming announcement that we just made last week. And then we'll spend this town hall, we are going to go more in depth into what is the Bay Area Playwrights Festival going to look like. There are other programs that are changing, like our resident playwright program that we're not going to talk about in our meeting in this town hall meeting today. But we will at a later point when we have more information. And we also have another town hall on Friday in which it'll be a panel, including myself, Everin Otchikin, who's a board member and also director at Playwrights Foundation, and Lauren Gunderson, who's a Playwrights Foundation alum, Adam Fong from Hewlett Foundation. That'll be a little bit more kind of building out the story of kind of what has been our process to get here and where Playwrights Foundation is going from multiple stakeholders who have been a part of that process. But today is kind of the nuts and bolts around the festival. So thank you all for introducing ourselves. And now I'm, just going to invite us to come into space, and I'm going to offer a little grounding exercise and invite folks to enter into that. I know people may be coming from different places, but we do want, to invite you to bring your full self into this meeting. And so maybe finding a comfortable place where you're at. And I see most people's cameras are off. You can turn your camera off, throughout this. You don't have to have your camera on, but you're welcome to have it on if you want. It's just taking a moment to check in with your body and ground yourself in your breath. At Playwrights Foundation in our staff meetings, we often start with a grounding and really just trying to remind ourselves that we can breathe, that we can pause, that we can rest, and to check in with our bodies. And so giving a moment for all of us here to do that. And just taking a few deep breaths and coming in to your body, into your space, and to this moment together. And also wanting to take a moment to kind of check in with yourself around how are you feeling about the changes and announcements that Playwrights Foundation that we've put out. With change can come a lot of different emotions, both positive and, maybe nervous or negative. And so we're wanting to kind of hold those feelings together as we kind of start our conversation today. And just take a moment to check in. Maybe you're excited, maybe there's hope, maybe you're, maybe there's sadness. I don't know, there can be a range of emotions. But recognizing them. And taking one final deep breath. And come back into space together. And we're actually going to drop a link into the chat where we're going to capture some of those feelings that people are feeling. Some of you may have received the link. We're going to create a word cloud. Some of you may, as playwrights, may have received a link because we were sending this link out to, alumni and to semifinalists and finalists. So if you've already put a word in there, you don't have to put another word. But for anybody who hasn't seen this link yet and would like to kind of share in one word or phrase, how are you feeling about Playwrights Foundation's new purpose and our programming changes that we announced? And I'll give a few moments for folks to put those in. And Heather, I know you're going to be kind of watching on the back end. And as you see them come in, then we'll maybe shift. And we'll look at the word cloud and reflect for a moment. But we'll give about a minute or two. Those feelings that in the grounding that maybe people were feeling. And you can keep introducing yourself, but you know, we also encourage, if your word not go in the chat, if you can put it in the Menti, but if anybody's having trouble figuring out the Menti, please feel free to privately message Heather or Jacquetta, who can help you out. I think some folks can click on it and it'll open, and some folks in their Zoom, you have to like copy and paste. Okay, it looks like we have some responses coming in, so I'm going to stop sharing, and Heather is going to share her screen, and we'll take a few moments to look at this and reflect on kind of some of the emotions in the room, some of the emotions in our playwriting community. I want to give an opportunity for people to respond. So we can see there is some excitement, there's some curiousness, there's some hopefulness in the room. But there's also, you know, some things in other places. I see some frustration, some, you know, maybe feeling excluded, also unattainable, things like scarcity model, but also like open, excellent, serves the Bay Area, some relief, well considered. So there's like a variety of emotions. I may welcome Heather if there's anything you want to kind of lift up and what you're seeing.
Yeah, I think just know that we deeply feel a lot of these emotions too, as we're moving through all changes, contain so many emotions, everything from being anxious to also optimistic at the same time. I always am excited when it's, you know, we're talking about being inspired, but also there's a tentativeness or an unsureness of where we're going to go and what promises are going to actually come to fruition. So just thank you everyone for sharing, and just know that we're feeling those things too. Jacquetta, anything you'd like to pull out?
Yeah, I just want to invite us all into space to honor all emotions on the spectrum, because those are real, especially with change. Change is always constant, right? And so it's always an unsure thing, but we're all here and we're in this together. And so thank you for being honest. Thank you for showing up, and thank you for sharing this space with us to kind of discover what these mean for all of us. And I'll pass it back to Jessica.
Yeah, thank you. So we're going to spend some time and actually share and read through Playwrights Foundation's new purpose, vision, and values. This is something we do at the top of every kind of rehearsal process. We have time in all of our staff and board meetings where we're reflecting on our values. And why it's so important to us is this is really the foundation of where a lot of the changes in the organization have been coming from over these past, honestly, past couple years, but like this feels like one of the biggest public things that we have been doing. And this is really guiding us in that process. So myself, I just was looking at my name, myself, Heather, and Jacquetta, we're going to read through this. So I'm going to read out the purpose, and then I'll pass to Jacquetta for the vision, and we'll kind of read through these. But one of the reasons I find speaking these into space also holds us accountable to live into these. And also there's going to be a moment at the end where we will ask all of you to participate and see, how are we living into these values with, you know, the changes that you are seeing or feeling and experiences, and where is there room for us to grow? And those are the questions we're always asking ourselves. So we'll engage together in that in the end too. So Playwrights Foundation supports and empowers playwrights' artistic growth and careers while championing their voices on a national level.
Vision. We imagine a future where playwrights are radically centered as visionaries who transform the world through storytelling.
Values. Number 1, playwright centered. We center our decisions around the specific needs of playwrights we serve and empower them to have artistic agency.
Community.
Community.
That's me. Community. We strive to create a meaningful community amongst playwrights and cultivate a constellation of creative relationships between playwrights and artists, organizations, advocates, and audiences. Oh, are you muted?
No, I'm not. Can you hear me?
Oh, now I can hear you.
Okay. Equity, we seek to build flexible and adaptable systems in order to create equitable opportunities for people across differences to participate, contribute, and succeed.
Inclusion, we create a culture of access, well-being, and a sense of belonging across a diversity of intersectional identities and voices.
Innovation. We value artistic experimentation, risk-taking, and innovative systems that support playwrights through a mindset of creativity and abundance.
Transparency. We strive to practice clear, open, and honest communication at every level, both internally and externally.
And local commitment. We invest in relationships with Bay Area playwrights, artists, organizations, and communities.
And so, as I mentioned, these came out of our recent strategic planning process, which was put in place when I came in as executive artistic director, which started the process and started the listening even before COVID happened. But of course, the pandemic, has impacted the pandemic and the racial justice uprisings that have happened over these past few years has really impacted these shifts as well. And really, how are we looking and deepening our support in this new purpose, and also changing the language from mission to purpose was very intentional. And we had almost 50% playwrights who were involved in our strategic planning process on our task force, and inviting alumni into the conversations. And words are very important to playwrights, and it was brought up around the colonial connotation and the just conquest nature of the word mission. And so really wanting to shift that our purpose and why we exist is to support and empower playwrights, artistic growth and career. And this shifted our organizational emphasis from new play development, which is what the old mission was more focused on, towards a greater commitment to playwrights' overall artistic growth and career advancement. That doesn't mean we don't support play development, but it has been looking at how do we deepen that support and the overall artistic growth, and more holistic support in that process, which brings in the mind, body, and spirit, but also financial. And so we really look at how do we put these into action. And I'm gonna stop sharing and have Heather share another kind of tool that we often use with our values to kind of kick off how, there we go. So this is something that we also created just for you to see that we often use this in staff meetings and are asking these questions of ourselves and say, what's resonating? What are we doing well? Where do we still need to improve? And just like an example of that is looking at our value of transparency. Some of this town hall is a example of how we are trying to increase transparency in our process and how to get here, and what that conversation looks like. And we've been trying to find different ways of how we're being transparent with our public community, in addition to how we're communicating internally. And I'll open it up if Heather and Jacquetta want to, share anything else about, the values or one in particular that you want to highlight in terms of what we're talking about today.
Sure, I'll jump in. So we're discussing more being playwright centric, right? And centered in how we can empower playwrights with more agency. That has been a lot of discussion since I've been here for about a year and some months of how do we get better at giving that agency of the creative process to our playwrights. And as an artistic producer, working with Jessica, who is our executive artistic director, I think we've been working very hard at asking ourselves the questions and collaborating with playwrights on their needs their wants and their vision of what an organization such as Playwrights Foundation can do to be more of an ally in the process of a playwright and their development, whether it's career, whether it's a piece of work, whether it's in community. So that is one that I particularly want to highlight today.
Yeah, I'm just gonna own my dramaturgy self for a second and just say, like, dramaturgs always like asking questions. And so these are just words that you know, are phrases. We really are thinking through what are the questions that these words bring up. Even in just how everybody got here. I'm sure maybe some of you were surprised that I kept pinging everyone saying, no, come to this town hall because you are our community. And we earnestly mean that. Like, when we're making changes, we've been going through this process, as Jessica said, since she got here, and then in 2021 when we were all gathering in our different working groups. Well, we've been widening the circles of sharing out how we've been thinking and innovating. And I also think innovation is something that that with our values is really true to who we are. It will encourage creativity and experimentation with an abundance mindset. And you know, and I think when we make these kind of announcements, the first immediate response is a scarcity mindset, but we really are trying to work through an abundance mindset and think about how are we using our resources well to serve more playwrights. And this is the beginning of the journey of how we're going to do that. And Jessica, I'll kick it back to you to kind of explain more of how we are getting into more of an abundance mindset.
Yeah, I think let's go to the next page and talk about what we have been doing to put our values into action over these past few years. And I think one of those that we've talked about is around like increasing playwright agency and leadership and artistic decisions at all levels of the organization. And I would even go to like just all decisions in general, really. But we've increased how many playwrights on our board. You know, we continue to have more playwrights who are working on staff. But also we have intentionally been creating like working groups, or, you know, as we move to like shift our programs or, you know, shift things internally, that there's always multiple playwrights who have been a part of the conversation in that process. And also, I mean, I think one of the things around equity is also looking at pay equity. So that is something we have been deeply invested in over these past few years, increasing wages for all staff and artists. All of our playwrights and every program that we've had have doubled in that time. And I just want to mention, we're also a small organization. Our budget is 300 to 350,000. And so our budget hasn't increased when we're doing this. So I think when we are putting a deeper emphasis on pay equity and also centering the like people who are in the process, which are both the artists and staff, it makes us have to reevaluate what the models are that are putting it into place. So, you know, and one of those other areas is eliminating unpaid internships. The festival for many years did offer a lot of opportunities to like young professionals, but until we can find funding to support our internships, we have eliminated the unpaid internships and turned those into like paid positions for different things. And also free artistic labor, we started paying our readers a small, many of you have been on there, it is small right now. That is something we also want to look at increasing. And a lot of these changes are looking at how can we go from a more equitable foundation and grow the organization from there. And so that's where a lot of these changes are both economic and playwright centric in what is going to serve our programs better in the long run. And so we deeply believe that, and also helps give us capacity to look for how are there other ways that we can support playwrights in the ecosystem, even beyond BAPF and RPI, which is something we'll be looking at in the next few years. So those are just some things I want to highlight of how we are putting our values into action. And then moving forward, the next part of like, on the next slide, kind of putting our
I'm trying to get there. Just one moment.
That's okay. You can click on it or you can push the little arrow.
I'm trying. I may need to stop share for a second.
No worries. You need me to share it? Is your computer freezing?
Yeah, just 1 second. Got your back. Okay.
Yay for technical thing. So I think we're really looking at with these program model changes of how we're putting our purpose into action, which means supporting more of the playwrights' overall artistic growth and careers, and also how we're empowering playwrights in that process, and how to be able to have flexible and adaptable models that we're able to, serve different needs as they come up. So it's being very clear about what we can offer, what we can do, having options that playwrights can like choose. But we've also had things that unexpectedly that come up every year. And so we want to be able to give more time, care, and resources to both of our core programs, BAPF and our resident playwright program. And they both needed a little bit of what the other has. That's a little bit of what I keep telling folks is like, we're going to look and talk about the festival in terms of what was the old model, what is the new model. And like the festival was just like a lightning fast like process in terms of like a few months, but on a very public scale. And our resident playwright program is a lot about career support and development, but there wasn't always a public element to it. And it used to be over a 4-year process. And their public element came if they were in the festival or in one of our rough reading series, and there wasn't anything that was dedicated to the resident playwrights. And they often were very overshadowed, and it was like they needed a little bit more of a public element, and the festival needed a little bit more time and kind of like artistic career support built into it. And with that, I think looking at kind of sunsetting our rough readings program that was in partnership with the National Center for New Plays at Stanford University, to be able to put more of our resources behind these other 2 programs and kind of uplift within there. So that's kind of overall these model changes that we're looking at, with the festival going from a 4-month process from when we select them to the festival to being a 12-month process and having that support over a longer period of time, which means the festival is every other year. And we are also dedicated to keeping a hybrid model and really looking at how does our in-person and hybrid models that we have been innovating. There has not been a same festival since I have been here, because the very first festival was a fully online festival. But I have found that there were things that we discovered in how we can support our playwrights deeper that we want to keep. So there's that within the festival, and then the resident playwright program that's going from 4 to 2 years with the public presentation in a year off opposite the festival. So that's kind of like the big high level. And then we're about to go into the nuts and bolts a little bit more of BAPF, which I know a lot of you are here to learn about, but we really wanted to give that like foundation. I think you can keep the screen share, Heather, unless it's computer stuff.
I might have to like manually do it each time. So sorry about that. I will get there.
Nope, here, I will just share screen and we'll just shift midstream. It's okay. Here we go. So I think going more into BAPF and why we started with our purpose, vision, and values, because we aren't like completely innovating new things about our programs. There's something about the approach and the shift and the holistic like engagement with them that is shifting, and not like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, for lack of a better term, but like how to keep building on the success of the past and deepen what that support looks like. So Heather, I may ask you to kind of, oh, that's not what I want to do. There we go. If you want to just kind of highlight kind of the old framework and approach and the new framework that we're, coming with for the festival.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to jump in. Tag team. So actually, when we looked at the language for the old framework, it actually felt very product oriented and capitalist. this very fast turnover model, which was output and really just the product was the script as opposed to the playwright themselves. So even in just reading an in-person showcase for a playwright's new work in an intensive creative laboratory over 3 weeks to advance these new works to production on stages in the Bay Area and across the US. Yes, it was fast and hopefully like the speed of it, but we're trying to decrease urgency right now as part of our values. And so our new framework, even in rewriting it, hopefully it goes for a whole nother kind of vocabulary of holistic support for playwrights' artistic growth and career growth through the creation of new work over a 12-month journey, culminating in a hybrid showcase, which also addresses what Jessica just said is over the past 3 years of being here, we've had to do it differently every way because of the pandemic, and we've discovered some things that we definitely want to keep moving forward. So, Jessica, is there anything else you'd like to mention?
I don't think so. Jacquetta, is there anything you want to add?
No, I think this is good. I think the 12-month journey is actually more supportive of the process of where we are headed as far as in playwright centered. So we are now focusing on the actual journey of the playwright and not just the work.
I'll jump in here and just say, like, for all of us who have been reading your scripts, you have been sending us such big, open-hearted pieces as you've all been responding to this moment that we're in. Doing this fast and furious festival doesn't really seem right to what the work is anymore. The really huge ideas and intersectionality that is just and pushing the form just feels like a fast festival, and we felt this too with our writers who have been here for the past couple of years. Is just taking on so much of what you're doing to interpret the moment, which is huge, and we really want to value that.
Thank you. All right, let's look a little bit more into that model, right? Like and some of this is we're looking at the old in-person model of BAPF and what it kind of used to be, and kind of looking at the expansion and what it looks like in this new hybrid model. And as I mentioned, there are multiple models that have been in between this that we're not looking at, but this like new hybrid model is kind of the combination and the things that like worked well in the past combined with things that we discovered, over this process. And so even if you just, there's still the aspects and the 3 focuses around like play creation, playwright goals, and networking. Those are kind of the 3 pillars, I think, within the program. And so kind of all of the pieces that are on the left side are also on the right side. So I'm gonna focus a little bit more on like what is added in this new hybrid model. Is we are still working with the Bay Area director, dramaturg, and actors. Actually, I'll start above that. Something we have realized, and we did this last year, is some playwrights actually prefer doing an all virtual process for some reason. So until folks stop choosing it, we will continue to ask playwrights if they want an in-person process or if they want a fully virtual workshop process. And this past year, when we gave that choice, 2 of our 5 playwrights actually chose an all virtual process for different reasons. One of those reasons is because someone had, collaborators all around the country that they wanted to keep working with. And something that is a value of ours is an economic thing, to be like very honest, but it's also a value of ours to support our local artists, is working with Bay Area director, dramaturg, and actors. But there's more flexibility if the process is virtual. We still start with Bay Area artists, but there's more opportunity if we can't find the right person that like supports the playwrights process to be able to go outside of the Bay Area. And then there's still a 3-day in-person retreat, but it is now 8 months prior to the public readings instead of 2 weeks prior to or like within those 2 weeks. And then also a virtual table read added in. Then we have a retreat where all the creative team comes together, they meet each other, and then there's a virtual table read later, which is a few months before the festival, still having an in-person festival over 2 weekends, but then releasing the readings on demand, 3 to 4 weeks later per permission of the playwright. Someone may not want their readings on demand, but what we have found is our largest audience is actually still online, even with like our reading that we did a month ago. And so we have found it gets the work out there and gets more people for it to be seen. And so we always give the playwrights a choice if they want it to be released on demand, which is really for them and not for us. So that is an element that we are wanting to keep, is how do we keep that moving forward? And I think in the playwright goals, just the expansion, of development goals for the script. We will continue to do that, but also adding in some moments of long-term visioning and career goals for the playwrights overall, and how this process can support, or just like getting that time and moment with an organization to talk about it and with a cohort. So there's that aspect, and we'll continue to have a theater professionals weekend on the second weekend. But something that we have always found challenging and wanted to do is really to connect playwrights to more producers or artists or people in the field who will then become interested in their work. And to be honest, it may be this play, but we have also found maybe they get commissioned for another work, or there's like some other way that there's partnership, but we're wanting to help bridge those relationships. And in the FAST process before, it was really hard to do that. And I'll be honest, in the few years that I was here, I never did it to the success that I wanted to, even though I had high aspirations. And so some of the hope is, how do we start building those relationships before we even get to the festival and have it built in a different way, especially in this world where we can connect and bring people into virtual rooms, and then maybe meet folks at the festival if they come in person. And also things we're adding is playwright cohort meetings. I think over and over when we do surveys from playwrights after the festival and we ask, what's one of your best resources? A lot of them actually say there are other playwrights in the cohort and the time that they spent with them, and we like house multiple of them together. And so we want to incorporate more playwright cohort meetings prior to the festival, so you're able to develop a deeper relationship and be in community over the period of time. And also we want to look at how are our programs engaging with one another? How are resident playwrights and current BAPF playwrights coming together? How are more alumni, our BAPF playwrights often are like, I want to meet other alumni, and so how we build more of that community into the process, is kind of the hope and goal. On the next page, we'll go a little deeper into like what that expanded timeline looks like. But Heather and Jacquetta, I may, give a moment just for you to kind of talk if there's anything else you want to uplift in kind of the new model and focus.
Yeah. So the questions in the chat gets uplifted as well from if all playwrights this year choose an in-person process, then will all workshops happen in person? Will 1 or 2 workshops need to be virtual from a financial point of view?
No, we are budgeted for them to all be in person. We only go virtual if a playwright wants it, and then we pivot support to that. But it's not a financial thing at all. So it's us having that flexibility, depending on what their needs, what people want. And even what I want to clarify too, if someone chooses an all virtual process, that means their artistic collaborators are all virtual. We still bring them out to San Francisco for the retreats, for all of the things that are happening in person. It just means your rehearsals are online. And also what we have done is for any processes that are online, like on Zoom, then we do like a virtual watch party for the in-person audiences that have, been really fun and successful. So that's how we kind of get the in-person audience to be able to see. And actually they translate even better sometimes in the on-demand than the in-person. But yeah, so that's kind of how the things we have discovered over that. So thank you for that question. But yeah, I actually welcome if there are other questions and give Heather and Jacquetta a moment if there's anything they want to highlight.
Sure. I think what's big for me on the producer side of things is that our new hybrid model actually allows me more time to connect and prepare for the festival, to fully be engaged and support the playwrights in their needs and wants. I know in the older model, a lot of things happen within months that some things tend to slip between the cracks, or some questions or aren't necessarily answered. Some things are rushed in a way of, if one thing fails, it may be a snowball effect. And so I think this elongated model actually allows us to fully be able to give the best festival and best experience that we can, right? And to just engage better in the creative process with the playwrights and be actual collaborators, even better than, and even more than we were before. So the experience is truly their experience, and not so much of us trying to fit their experience to 2 months of works. And it gives us just the opportunity to also show up fully in moments and where we are still learning and moving and shaking in this process. So that is something that I truly am excited to see from this
Yeah, we're
program.
building this as we go. This year will definitely be an emergent process, but I'm excited by it because it gives us the time to be emergent and more responsive instead of reactive. I think that's, some of what we're hoping in this model too. Go ahead, Heather, sorry.
Yeah, and I'll just say this goes back to in this strategic planning process, just addressing staff capacity. If we're running 2 programs where we're serving 2 cohorts of playwrights at once, just really making sure that that we are building those connections to potential producers and festivals, because again, it sounds like, even if it sounds like in the short model that if you're in this thing, it'll go directly towards a production, which is what everybody wants, right? We want that production. Really doing the work in advance, I'm already feeling that lovely feeling of having the time to engage with more writers and with building those connections, because I don't have to run straight into another application process where I'm getting to meet another 700 writers. So and many of you saw last year we were trying to run the application process at the same time as the festival. That didn't work.
We've been trying to shift the models, and we need a bigger shift.
We learned some things, and we just want to again appreciate you all understanding. Staff really wants to be there for you, and we're hoping this model can facilitate that.
Yeah, I meant to mention this in the things that we've been doing around staff and staff structure, is I think what a lot of people also don't realize, Playwrights Foundation appears bigger on the outside than we are on the inside. And we only have 1 full-time staff member, which is myself. And it used to be more project-based folks, and 1 or 2 other year-round part-time folks. And so what we have moved towards is having, I think we have 4 year-round part-time folks, and especially in the artistic department. So there's more consistency with staff. There's more honestly job security as well. There's often 1 year you're talking to this seasonal employee, and the next year you're talking to another. And we really want to create more consistency with staff from year to year and who is working there. And also parse it out from me as the full-time. I want to be in community and partnership and leadership with other staff. And it is just these models that have the executive artistic director who's doing everything are just unsustainable. So we've been trying to move away from that as we're moving forward too. And so I think that leans into the staff capacity, which honestly goes towards being playwright centered, because if we can support you and be there for you, and there's more than just me there for the playwrights, it creates a better experience. So we're wanting to name that. Did we lose Jacquetta?
I'm sure she'll come back. I'll check in with her.
Yeah. The lovely someone's internet drops out and then you lose someone type thing. But I'm going to move us. Oh, here she is. I'm going to move us on to the next thing as Jacquetta comes back and joins us, but this just puts some of what we talked about in a timeline form. So you can see a little bit, oh, what does this look like when you're not doing everything in 2 months around, like, you know, being onboarded, having individual staff, selecting the director and dramaturg, going straight into casting, having your creative team meetings, and then going right into an intensive 2.5-week process, you know, which all of that, which is about 50 collaborators that we as staff are trying to pull together in community in that time, which it's possible. It is possible. I have found it is not possible to be as supportive of the playwrights as we want to be to do that, and to be responsive as things change, as people cut characters or want to add characters, or like these different things, you know, that are happening in the process. So Jacquetta, if you're here, I may have you just kind of like highlight in the new model, like what it kind of looks like and how the process is separated in different kind of chunks or stages. I'll say stages instead of chunks.
Yes. So, and sorry about that. My laptop's acting a little funky today, but I'm here. So with the old model, from May to June, as soon as I came in.
You can do the new model. Go to the, you may have been gone, but I went through the old model a little bit already. So you can just highlight the new model.
Thank you. So with the new model, June to July, we'll be having the cohort orientation meetings. We'll also have the individual meetings with PF staff, and then the playwrights will work with them to select their dramaturg and director collaborators. And they'll be able to have their first creative team meeting. Then within that time frame of a month to 2 months, we go into having our 3-day in-person retreat for all collaborators, which will be in August, which gives us enough time for everyone to select their dramaturg and director, to have their creative team meetings, and to really get to know each other that way. And then we have the in-person retreat where everyone gets to kind of connect and collaborate, and we'll be flying in the out-of-state or out-of-town playwrights who are also come in for that 3-day retreat, which is something that's completely different from what we used to do or previously did. And then after that, September, October, and November gives us about 3 months of casting and cohort meetings, where previously, like Jessica was stating, we were doing all of that and hiring and selecting and doing all of these collaborative things in 2 months of hiring about 50 people. We now get to start that process in a breakdown of 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And then December through February, we have a virtual table reading option for our playwrights, where they get to hear their work out loud before they actually get to the actual workshop in Bay Area Playwrights Festival. So that also allows them to finalize the cast for the workshops, do some networking in between, and we have the option of choosing, which is autonomy to the playwrights, of whether or not they want to do that in December or they want to do it in February, which I think is a beautiful thing, because now they get to hear the work prior to, as they're working through their drafts, right, coming into the workshop. And then March through April, we have another cohort meeting. And then BAPF starts April 12th through April 21st in 2024. And that 2-week in-person workshop, whether it's folks who want to be in person or folks who want to be online, that all happens, and that magic happens then. But by then, it's a whole process of development that has already happened in engagement, where the creative teams get to build that actual rapport with each other. And there's more time and collaboration and creativity that gets to happen during the process. And we also have networking happening in December through February, March through April. So these are the things that we are now kind of working in and bringing into space in this new model, which gives and breaks down everything that would happen in a 3-4 month time frame to 12 months. But it also gives the team and the staff and the board who will be engaging with folks the capacity to do so in a very successful way.
Yeah, I keep talking about it that we'll have like, it's like 3 stages of kind of artistic coming together and working on the work instead of having it chunked into a 2.5-week process, which gives like playwrights more time to make more significant changes, because many of you know those quick processes you get in, you got to stay up till 2 a.m. to get it in for the rehearsal the next day if you want to make those changes. But like sometimes you're like, I actually want to sit on it, I don't know what I think about all this that's coming to me. And so like the old model, and I want to say our old model is very similar to many people's old models. This is not just a critique of Playwrights Foundation's model, it's that model of like, get in, do it quick, you know. I think, and it also lends itself to people with certain type of abilities can do things in that quick way. And I will say, as we worked with like other playwrights who maybe have kids and families, or, you know, neurodivergent, you know, different things, I'm like, this is not supportive of all, or playwrights who don't like working under pressure. You know, there's little pressure points along this whole thing, but it really is, I think, giving more the time and space and to be responsive in a way that allows folks to work in different ways. And I also, you know, I think everybody always asks me the question of like, oh, is this going to be too long of a process? You know, you have the application, you know, for the year, and then the development part or the support for a year. And you know, everybody's going to be getting productions. And the thing, we're in a completely different landscape right now. Thank you. We're in a completely different landscape right now. And like plays from our 2020 season have yet to be produced. Plays from the 2019 season were just now being produced. And actually what we're trying to put in place is like, how do we, one, that this play doesn't maybe need another development process after this, you know, hopefully it's like really close. And that we can hopefully build some more connections that helps move that forward. So I think that is yeah, one of the things that are kind of within this as well, is how do we set ourselves up to even be stronger advocates and create more impactful work that's going to be successful afterwards, is kind of the hope and the goal. So I'm going to move us forward because we're getting a little bit to the end of our time here. We started a little bit late, but if folks need to head out, we totally understand. This recording will be up. People can access it later if you want to see more information. But you've always asked, like, how many playwrights are we serving? What does it look like? And for this next festival, which we are going to be making selections soon, within the next month, after after we have playwrights self-select if they still want to be considered, now that they know what it looks like. But we're going to be supporting 5 playwrights in this next year, with 2 San Francisco Bay Area playwrights and 3 national playwrights. And that is always a priority for us, of highlighting local playwrights, and has been since I came to the organization and prior to that. But we are also wanting to make sure, this is where, like, how do we, from one application process, support, you know, more playwrights in the process, and having 10 honorable mentions who also receive a meeting with Playwrights Foundation staff and are highlighted in a play slam, a virtual play slam during the festival, and wanting to, how do we kind of build community with more playwrights, even if they're not in the full festival, and connecting. And this also makes the groundwork. This is like where, sorry, Heather, who's not seeing the slides? Someone's saying we might have some technical difficulty. Are people not able to see the slides?
Yeah, can you re-screen share off of your computer again, Jessica?
Or do people personally?
No, it looks like they can see. I think at the last slide, something was cut off just because of the way it was showing up on the screen, but I think this is fine.
Okay. Great, thank you. I see someone say I can see. But I think, you know, how we do have hopes, and we want to grow, and we want to grow from this place of like and our application processes have also deepened and become more playwright centric. And we want to look at how are we supporting more playwrights from one application process, and in the future, hopefully able to increase to have more playwrights who are selected, maybe more support for honorable mentions that comes. And I also think we are looking at partnerships or ways we can deepen advocacy with theaters to even funnel. We do this whole selection process, and there are so many great playwrights in our semifinalists and finalists, and like, I wish we could support everybody, but other people come to us being like, hey, we're looking for XYZ or this, and how is the like selection process also then making connections even for semifinalists and finalists, and we haven't always had the capacity to do that. And so that's what this is. Heather was even just mentioning that earlier, more of that time and space. And over these next few years, as we lean into this model, how then we're building more advocacy, not just for those that are selected. So I think those are the hopes and dreams as we're looking at this new model. So I'm going to move us on to the next page because everybody's like, well, what's happening with the next one? So that's the 46th Bay Area Playwrights Festival. And now what is, oh wait, is there another? Oh, the 47, I didn't realize it. The 47th Bay Area Playwrights Festival. So Heather, can you highlight what's happening with the application, you know?
Yes. So after we have the BAPF 46 Festival in April, we will then open up applications again in early summer 2024, and we will have a wide open process again. But at the same time, I will say that like every year we are learning how to make it more of a playwright centric process. We got some good feedback this year from our new system. At the same time, there might be questions or even like how we ask the questions, and we've gotten feedback over the years that we want to keep implementing. So the more time we have for ideation and receiving feedback, the more we can make those applications more playwright centered. And just rethinking about the power dynamics involved of applying to a place when we're trying to actually find the lead artist for our programs.
Great. Yeah. So those applications will then be for a 2026 festival. So the public festivals will happen on the even years moving forward in this model, but we will select the playwrights in the odd years and have a 12-month support process. So that's kind of what it is looking like there. So I haven't seen any other questions come in the chat, but just want to give a moment if there's some other questions brewing that people want to put in the chat for us to address. Just give a little moment. All right.
Just thank
Well,
you.
we have,
and yeah, I'm just gonna highlight what's popping up in the chat. And you know, we do discuss these plays so deeply through our process. We want to be doing more. Sarah says, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, it's okay, Heather.
Yeah.
I think, you know, I think in closing, we want to do a little exercise in going back and having you all kind of reflect and be like, where is this living into our values at Playwrights Foundation? And also, we really want to know where we can continue to grow. And so if we can just, we're going to put another link into the chat. And, you know, as we're kind of wrapping up here, if people will take a moment to kind of answer in the chat and looking at how do these programs fulfill Playwrights Foundation's values. And I'm just going to put this back up here so you all can also see. But how does this fulfill Playwrights Foundation's values? And then there's a second question around how is there still room for us to grow towards our values? If you need to run, that's totally fine. We're a little over, but if you're like willing to stay and kind of fill one of these out and give some feedback, because I think these are our values are guiding and directing as well as our purpose as to where we're moving, and we continue to want to expand that. So I think while folks are filling that out. Maybe Jacquetta, we'll send the other survey via email, so let's not worry about that. But Jacquetta, if you can maybe kind of close us out as people are filling out the values response.
Absolutely. So again, on behalf of Playwrights Foundation, myself, Jessica, Heather, our whole staff board, we want to thank everyone that's in space with us, our playwrights, for showing up and asking questions and being curious, and just being a part of our family for this long, however long you've been here. This work is for you. So without you, there is no work for us. And so with that being said, we are truly grateful that you are here and allowing us to clarify all of the questions and concerns that you may have, because we've also had them, of how will this show up in space? How will this be received, you know? And I think these moments are important for us to come together as a community and understand that this is a community. We are not doing this for just Playwrights Foundation. We are doing this truly because we believe in the work, believe in making sure everyone who is a great storyteller, a great writer, a great playwright, a great artist, that they get to shine and collaborate with each other, and their work really and truly does get produced. I mean, that at the end of the day is a job well done for me, is a job well done for us. And we want to work and strive towards getting more of our playwrights that come and support us, that come and are finalists, like Jessica said, some semi-finalists, some that make it to our cohort, and those who we, excuse me for not having my words in this moment, but those who we truly believe are ready, right? And that we want to see develop. We want to see you, your work on stage. We want to see it across the country and across the world being produced, that you are having those opportunities, right? And you are having the option to be not just the writer, but the artist in front of the work, so that folks can see you and you're visible. And so I want to say thank you again. I want to remind you that this is hard work for us. This is not just us putting it out there and saying, you know, this looks good. Like, no, this is hard work for us. We really, really, truly believe in the work that we do here at Playwrights Foundation. And all of us are very passionate. And we'll share with you, like, we all come with our passions full blown of like what we want to see and what we want to do. So with that being said, thank you again. We do have a survey. We'll send that out in an email for everyone. Thank you, Emma. Thank you. So Emma says she's really excited, or they're really excited to learn about this new model. Seems like a generous and holistic direction for new play development. Thank you so much. That is exactly what we're striving for. And so please look out for that survey in your email. And thank you again for showing up.
Thank you. We'll leave this open in case others are still kind of filling stuff out.
Thank you, Sean Joseph. Thank you, Claire.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Appreciate you.
Really glad you're here at space with us today.